Hello and welcome. Ukraine is attacking at several positions along the front line, while we have reports that fresh reserves from the Ukrainian side are being deployed. Also, we have some more information about the fighting around the bridgehead at the Antonovsky bridge close to Kherson, as well as a theory why Russia might blow up the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, but more about this in this situational picture. The United States Joint Chief of Staff Mark Milley said, day by day, the Ukrainian side is advancing 500 to 2,000 meters through massive minefields. He said that the counteroffensive might very well last for another 10 weeks. That would be 2.5 months. The Russians also emphasize that the Ukrainian attacks are mostly right now being done with small infantry groups with light to close to no mechanized support. This implies that they are still doing reconnaissance work, that they are basically feeling the front line where there are weaknesses, and that explains how slow it's going. Both sides, both from the Russian side as well as Western observers, are more or less in unison that Ukraine still has significant resources and significant reserves that were never deployed, so they still have the potential to do powerful strikes in the future. There was an air attack with an additional eight cruise missiles, rockets being reported, missiles being reported, as well as 8 Shahid. The Ukrainian side said they shot 3 of those missiles were Caliber cruise missiles. They shot them down, as well as all 8 Shahid, which implies that 8 of the cruise missiles passed through and hit their targets, as the Ukrainians didn't claim them to be shot down. Ukrainian attacks are being reported close to Kupiansk in the northeastern region, Zaporizhzhia and Synkivka here, that they are trying to push here. There are no reports of them having been successful in any regard. Further south here, Liman, Torske, Crimea region axis, there are reports about new Ukrainian attacks. Riba is reporting, and that is the interesting part here, according to unconfirmed reports, the transfer of the new 44th Mechanized Brigade is being reported here, so the Ukrainians are bringing in fresh mechanized units. That is important because Serhiy Cherevati, the speaker of the Eastern Forces of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, said that the Russians have redeployed units. They took VDV units that were close to Crimea fighting and brought them to Bakhmut, and they have been replaced with territorial units. I'm not completely sure what that's supposed to mean, whether it's DNR, LNR, or some militias, but it's clear that the combat value of those that replace the VDV should be significantly lower, while Ukraine is bringing in fresh resources of mechanized units that have the ability to advance quite significantly. So we might see heavy attacks there fairly soon that at least give Ukraine hope of some successes there as well. Further south around Bakhmut, we have reports about small successes close to Rostolivka as well as to Klishivka. Girkin was confirming small successes without mentioning where exactly. Russian military bloggers are saying the area north of Bakhmut, so basically this region here, is very difficult and under a lot of pressure by the Ukrainians. And Serhiy Cherevati, the speaker for the Ukrainian Eastern Forces, said that they have had additional successes and liberated additional territory. We do not exactly know where. There is no details here, but then again, he said that now they are redeploying VDV units here as reinforcements. This is obviously because of the political relevance for Bakhmut, and it has to be emphasized here. We're talking about a political relevance of Bakhmut, not a military one. The Russian armed forces simply can't afford already losing Bakhmut again, so the Ukrainian side is drawing in more and more Russian reserves and more combat power from the Russians. That is more or less useless here in any other means, and thus at least that should be the plan. They are going to weaken other front lines and thus allowing the Ukrainians to advance. Further south, we have reports about fighting around Avdiivka. No reports that there has been any successes by either side. Marinka, Russian attacks, no successes being reported. but we do have successes east of Vuleda. In this area here, the Ukrainians advanced a little forward. This has been geolocalized, and it's here. You can see Volodymyrivka, these names, north of Blahodatne. And we can see this is more or less here. So the Ukrainians have advanced roughly to that point, which should be more or less a kilometer from where they've last been seen. Again, not really a breakthrough, but at least a success they can present. Another point of fighting, of intensive fighting, is more or less the area here at the border between the oblasts of Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia, more or less west of Novodonetsk. The fighting is continuing. The Ukrainians were attacking in the last 2 days, and the Russians did counterattacks. There were reports about heavy Russian counterattacks to throw the Ukrainians back, but neither Ukrainians nor Russians have been successful in their attacks. And right now we have fresh reports about Ukrainian attacks. And here we have Venkor, for instance, writing that the Ukrainians push in the direction of Priyutne. So they are still trying to liberate that, but so far without any success. Generally, the advances are limited in their size, but the Russians are saying there are fresh reserves being brought in. A artillery brigade and another brigade are both being shipped here. So we should expect soon an intensification of the Ukrainian attacks south of Velika Novosilka in this area here. Further west, close to Orikhiv, there are additional reports of fighting. The Ukrainians keep attacking there, again, generally in smaller groups, but they have reached the outskirts of Robotyne. There are reports about trench fighting there, but that doesn't mean they have been successful. Robotyne, so far from what I see, is still in Russian hands. The trench fighting can go either way. The Ukrainians might have been defeated there, but at least temporarily they were able to enter into the trenches here. So we will have to see over the next few days. There is one success reported in this area though, and that is here at Luhivske. We have geolocalized pictures again being reported here, and that's here. But then again, the success is limited. We are talking about a few hundred meters here and a few hundred meters there. Around the Dnipro bridgehead that was established by the Ukrainians here, just to have an overview for you, this is the Dnipro, and they cross close to Kherson on the other side of the Dnipro here, where the ruins of the Antonovsky bridge are. But it's important to emphasize that there is still a river in between, so it's not a real bridgehead, if you want it this way. Technically, they crossed the Dnipro, but they're not on the other side fully yet. The Russians used an Iskander ballistic missile on the remnants of the bridge to destroy the Ukrainian position there. After that, the Russians were heavily attacking, and now the Ukrainian side was defeated according to the Russians. The Russians claim they completely pushed in the bridgehead and reoccupied not just this area, but also the Dachas. But Russian military bloggers are already saying that's not true. The fighting is still continuing. It's unclear yet. We have Girkin here saying that fighting continues on the enemy's bridgehead at the Dachas and overpass of the Antonovsky bridge. There have been no reports and changes of the situation since yesterday. So it's unclear yet. They seem to still be fighting in the area around the bridge. Whether that has been reached by Russian forces or not is unclear. It seems likely that the Russians might have made some gains here, but it seems also likely that the Ukrainians are at least in this area of the Dachas still have a presence. I've seen videos, but they only show like shelling of the rear areas here of the Ukrainians, where the Ukrainian side had artillery pieces that dominated the area here to inflict heavy losses on the Russians, and the Russian side is now trying with counter battery fire to take out those artillery pieces. So generally the bridgehead is likely being diminished in size, but it's probably still in existence, and we will keep an eye on this in the future reports. The last news I have for you today is from the Zaporizhzhia power plant. It's a nuclear power plant with 6 reactors, and the Ukrainian president said in an interview the Russians still have 5,000 soldiers there with a lot of equipment. Now, obviously, I don't know if he's supposed to mean that in the area of just the nuclear power plant are 5,000 soldiers, or whether it's the overall area here. But regardless, there are supposedly still significant Russian armed forces, despite claims by the GUR that the Russians are reducing their strength here, and that any Ukrainian worker for the nuclear power plant who had signed with the Russians a contract is ordered to leave the area until July 5th, when by coincidence the wind is turning westwards and would blow any damage, any radioactive particles towards the Ukrainian-held areas. But the Ukrainian president said Russia is planning to do start an incident there, probably blow up parts of the nuclear power plant to freeze the conflict, to freeze the front lines, as maneuver warfare is supposedly impossible when this was done, and that would give Russia time to recruit and add strength to their armed forces to resupply them. To me, that doesn't make any sense, because just because the nuclear power plant blows up doesn't mean you can't cross the area. We've seen that with the Russians in the Chernobyl plant, where they even dug trenches. I mean, the guys might be dead by now who did that, but that doesn't mean you have to stop it. And whether the Russians really have a point in polluting areas they claim to be theirs, they want to keep, is also questionable. In the end, we'll have to observe it, see if something happens at all, and then see who is the main benefactor, and that might be an indication. As said, both sides claim the other side is preparing something. We'll just have to pay attention to it. If you want to pay attention to this on this channel, then I would obviously like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. If you enjoyed this situational picture, shorter than the long situation reports, then please hit the thumbs up and leave a comment for the algorithm, or what you think. Are we going to see something with the nuclear power plant? Leave your opinion in the comment section. That can be highly interesting, and it also helps with the algorithm. This channel is only possible because of the support from viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone supporting me already, and that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.